Good evening and thanks for joining us. Margaret Thatcher, the longest serving and first female British Prime Minister, has died at the age of 87. All day the tributes have been pouring in. American President Barack Obama said Thatcher stands as an example to our daughters that there is no glass ceiling that can't be shattered. Thatcher's willpower, like her ever-present handbag and her upswept hairdo, were legendary. Consensus and compromise were not in her vocabulary, and she had many political foes. As Sean Mallon reports, there is no question Thatcher leaves an indelible mark on the world.
Even a generation after she left office, even in death, Margaret Thatcher still inspires strong feelings. For some, a builder, others a destroyer. But admirers and enemies could all agree that this comment summed up her career.
You turn if you want to. The ladies not for turning.
The Soviets dubbed Thatcher the Iron Lady, a name she loved. She was the bitter enemy of British unions and a heroine of conservatives in the 1980s.
Margaret Thatcher didn't just lead our country, she saved our country.
She was born Margaret Roberts, middle class, the daughter of a grocer. She studied chemistry and law, then married wealthy businessman Dennis Thatcher and gave birth to twins. She first won a seat in Parliament in 1959, elbowed her way to the Conservative leadership in 1975, and then won Downing Street in 1979, ushering in a revolution.
Those who are coming in with very high community charges are doing so because their expenditure is profligate and they have little consideration for the pockets of their constituents.
Thatcher cut, deregulated, and privatized. She fought to slash the power of unions, winning a memorable battle in the 1984 miners' strike. She led her nation into war when Britain pushed Argentinian invaders from the Falkland Islands. With her friend and fellow conservative Ronald Reagan, she was given credit for facing down the Soviet Union and hastening its collapse and the end of the Cold War.
What she did, not just in Britain, but what she did on the world stage, really laid the groundwork for the freedom and the prosperity and opportunity that so many people around the world enjoy today.
But many hated her, accusing her of fomenting class warfare. An unpopular poll tax sparked riots in the streets. Members of her Conservative Party started to rebel at her rule, and she was forced to quit in November of 1990. The Iron Lady facade slipped a bit for a misty-eyed departure.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're leaving Downing Street for the last time.
The Queen made her Baroness Thatcher, but in the last decade she suffered a series of strokes and then dementia. Increasingly frail, she had not been seen in public in years. After she succumbed to a stroke at age 87, the flags at Downing Street were lowered as the nation mourned and reflected on a complicated legacy.
Downing Street says the funeral will happen sometime next week, the exact day still to be announced, and it will happen in the heart of the city in St. Paul's Cathedral. Donna?
And Sean, it will be a ceremonial, not a state funeral, but even that is already polarizing people in Britain. Tell us why.
Yeah, it is, because ceremonial funeral is still a pretty grand thing. That's what the Queen Mother got. State funerals are generally reserved for monarchs or the occasional national hero, Winston Churchill being the last one. Yeah, some people, opponents of Thatcher, have started an online petition suggesting that this funeral should be privatized, not paid for by the state. Little shot at Thatcherite policies. I should also say that not everyone is mourning today. There have been impromptu street parties in South London and in Glasgow. People who say they've been hurt by Thatcher's policies, celebrating her death. Donna?
All right, Sean Mallon in London, thank you. Here in Canada, Pierre Trudeau and then Brian Mulroney were in office during Thatcher's tenure. Today, Mulroney had high praise for Thatcher.
She didn't lead from behind. She led from ahead, way out. And she will be remembered, along with Churchill, as, of course, the two greatest prime ministers by far of the 20th century.
Jean Chrétien also dealt with Margaret Thatcher primarily before he became Prime Minister. In the early 1980s, he led Trudeau's team to Britain to patriate the Constitution. Today, he remembered Thatcher fondly, despite their political differences.
She was a very colorful and you know, and tough Prime Minister. She understood well that they had no choice but to give us our Constitution.